What is up, guys? We are back with part two of the EV bike build slash building a battery. So we've got the first battery block done. That's 100 cells right there, 10 by 10. So I had to do something weird. I had to wrap each cell in fish tape in order to get it to fit snugly in the cell holder. Like they would fit in the cell holder, but they were a bit wobbly. And so if you were to try and like pick this thing up, it's pretty heavy, but if you were to try and pick this up without them having the fish paper around there, then the entire thing would be floppy and flimsy and want to fall apart. What are you doing on my Google base? Why are you so loud? I'm not making a video. So, anyway, back to this. Got the first cell block done, had to wrap everything in fish paper, had to cut out each individual one, measure it, and cut it out so that way it would fit. Kind of a pain in the butt, and then I had to install each one of these. They come like this, and then they link together. So essentially you build the bottom tray like so, have it ready, and then I was going to have all of these installed, all of the cells installed, and then try and put the top on, but it took too long. I put Captain tape around the top and bottom of the cell to try and keep the fish paper on, but it's Arizona and it's getting summertime, so the Captain tape just won't stay stuck to the cell. It wants to spread out. So that essentially meant what I had to do was I had to install each one of the top cell holders individually. So I had to put it on and then put the next one on and link it together while making sure all the cells were in simultaneously. A huge pain in the butt, but it was so much easier than trying to put the entire top one on at one time. So got that one done. Just got all of these cut today. Move it out of the way. So I've got all 100 of these ready for these cells in here. That's the rest of the 100 in there. And then another thing that I feel I should tell people, two big things. One is always buy extra cells. I bought 200, which is exactly how many I needed, but I should have bought extra cells. When you get the bus bars, they'll give you little extra pieces like this that you can test on. These are essentially the exact same material as this, so you can use those to test, weld your test cells to make sure that your welder, which we finally got in, we have right here, make sure that can actually do the welding before you damage any of your cells, or it doesn't work on the cells that are actually inside of your cell holder. So you want test cells for that. So I got 12 more cells to be able to test on. Hold on a second, I gotta pat the Coco again. Why is my Coco face? What are you doing, little me mouse? Oh. Okay. Yes, me mouse. Okay. So, also got the polycarbonate board that'll go on top, that'll separate and then encase the battery to make it hard, to strengthen it, is what I mean. Got the spot welder in, as I said. I haven't tested it yet, just because the only bus bars I did get these bus bars in, but these are the 0.3 millimeter bus bars that I ordered first that are only going to be able to do 200 amps. So I'm going to save these. I've also got a bunch more of these 21 by 700 cell holders. So I'm going to save these bus bars and those cell holders and I'll build another battery pack, one that'll be 200 amps, or maybe even 100 amps. I don't know. I'll just build another one, utilize those with it. So I'm still waiting for the 1mm bus bars to come in. And then when they come in, I can finish the battery off. I got the Ant BMS. Move that out of there. This is the balancing wires for it. And then this is the Ant BMS here. And it's the 420 amp 1050 peak. So very robust BMS. That's pretty much everything exciting for the battery. I got the 120 amp Anderson connectors. I got this very heavy solid 6-gauge copper. And it's crazy how much heavier this solid copper is compared to the copper clad aluminum. Like that stuff there. Pretty much everything else I got for wires are essentially copper clad aluminum. And actual copper is so much heavier. But that's rated for like 105C over there. So that will probably do 85, 95 amps. Over it. So the plan is essentially I'm going to double up the wires. So I'll have, I want to say I'm going to have four of the 6-gauge wires coming off of the positive, and then I'm going to put 2 of the wires and then crimp them in there, since that's 6-gauge and these are rated for 4-gauge, I believe. So I'll put both the wires in there, shove them in there, and then crimp that. And then I'm planning on having 2 Anderson plugs for the battery. I was thinking about 3, but I think I might do 3 because each one of them is rated for 120 amps continuous. So with 3 of them, that's 360 amps continuous without having to worry about the plugs. And if I do 2 wires per one, that's 6-gauge wires going to it. So I shouldn't have to worry about that. And then I'll do 1 XT90 connector for the charging. And I got the charger on its way from China for 120 amp circuits. It's going to do, or 120 amp US is what I meant by that's what its input is, and the plug on it. And it's going to output 84 volts at 15 amps. So I calculated I could do 84 volts at 20 amps on a normal US circuit. That's 1800 watts. For a normal US 15 amp circuit, 120 volts, 15 amps. So I didn't want to get a 20 amp because that would mean I would need the entire circuit available, and that's, rare that you're going to have the entire circuit available to you. So I got a 15 amp one, and that should still charge this, I think, in about 3 hours, I want to say. Because at 2 hours, or 20 amps, it'll be an hour and 45 minutes. No, sorry, it's 145 minutes, which is 2 hours, and 2 hours and 15 minutes. 120. No, yeah, 2 hours and 25 minutes. Sorry, I'm tired. So 15 amp charger should just add a bit more to that, so it'll be around 3 hours charge time for this, which is great. So the only thing we're waiting for at this point for the battery is I have to wait for the 1mm bus bars, and then wait for the charger, but I don't necessarily need to wait for the charger to get here to build the battery. So hopefully I'm going to get the rest of the cells set in here, have both halves of the battery ready to go, and then it'll be ready for it to be spot welded once the bus bars get here. I am going to have to weld the 6-gauge copper onto the end plates like this before I weld them to the cells. Just because I don't want them to be welded onto the cells and then having to put heat in them while trying to weld the wires on. And if that heat transfers into the cells, you know, you just don't want that. So I'll have to do the positive and negative, weld those wires on, and then the other set of positive and negatives will have to be wired together. So I'll have to do those 4 before I start welding everything together. But that should pretty much be it for the battery. Next thing we have to go over the motor got in. I guess let's back up and show you. That's basically a mock-up of what we have so far. We've got the motor in right there. That's the battery, the 72 volt 30 amp hour 50 amp battery that I have sitting right there. So the Kunrei KR5V came in, so I've got that on a plate here. This mounting point here, and then there's a mounting point back here. This is where the motor, that 70cc motor, used to mount up. And then the foot pegs and kickstand went mounted to the bottom of the actual motor itself. So that's why it's just completely empty all down here. Like this frame from here to here, this is all empty. So I have to build all this stuff out. So basically what I did for that is I got a bunch of these foot plates. These are like, these go to big Xerox printers, like floor printers. These are the foot plates that would go in that can, you know, add some sturdiness and add some width to the printer. I got a bunch of those. As you can see, they are very, very thick metal. And that is essentially what they look like. So for the bottom plate, when I was looking at it, I was like, this looks like a pretty good skid plate. And, you know, if I cut these out, then this will be the space where the motor goes. So did that on this plate down here. Cut these little things off and then welded this back on, cut a hole in it so the bolt can go through. But this angle was too sharp, essentially, and the battery was too tall. So what I ended up doing was I cut a slit. Since this is super thick metal, you would need like a very expensive hydraulic press to be able to just to bend this, and like, you know, a very big brake press or something. So I just cut through the metal with the grinder there and put it in the vise and bented it basically the way I needed it to go. Essentially just flattened like this bend here. I just flattened this piece completely out and then left a little bend in there. I might exaggerate that bend a bit more. But that is how it's looking so far. I'm going to weld on 2 pieces up front there, and those 2 pieces will actually hold on the far driver controller. It's going to sit at the front here with the heat sink faced out, so that way it, you know, cools off as much as it can. This piece here, I'm going to cut this little plate here along there, and then this piece is going to get bent back, so that way the battery can move backwards a couple more inches. The battery moves as close to the motor as possible, so that way it's not crowding out the controller, which is why this plate's going to have to go down a little bit, because as you can tell, that bends down and the battery's already touching the frame as is. But this point's a little bit higher than it really needs to be, so it can go down and the battery can go back. And that's kind of the plan with this one. Also, the 80 tooth number 35 Mako sprocket that I got, it is essentially the entire size of the rim. So decided not to go with that. Plus, the tooth on the Kunray wasn't a 9 tooth, because I think I calculated a 9 tooth and an 80 tooth would give me like 6.6, but it turns out that is like an 11 tooth or something. And so I got a smaller sprocket, and this sprocket is closer. I'm not pointing at it. I got a smaller sprocket, and this sprocket is closer to actually fitting on that hub itself. This hole is just like a teeny tiny bit too small, I believe, but the bolt pattern should match, which is awesome. So I'm gonna throw that guy on there. I've got to take the tire back off, pull all of the bearings out. I got a bearing puller kit and all new bearings inside of here. I've got the bearings for the tree as well, because these bearings are basically non-existent. You can see it move back and forth. So I got a rebuild for the neck, but need to keep manufacturing on this. Well, manufacturing. Keep fabricating on this. I need to get this at its final height. First thing and foremost is I need to cut that back and bend that back, so that way the battery can move back, and then I can figure out what that height needs to be. Once that's at the height, I can cut and weld those on there, and then I'm going to have them screw into the frame, so that way it'll mount there, and then have another mount up there. So the entire mount and tray could be removed, and you could theoretically put the 70C back on, but that's not the plan. I'm not sure why I'm not welding directly to the frame and I'm making the mount removable. I guess it's just added challenge. But the hard part is essentially, after I get all of that stuff done, which is easy, the hard part is going to be connecting this piece to this piece and then doing the back side of it. And then after I do that, I'm probably also going to connect a piece down here to here around that, because I want to hit that motor mount there. And then there's mounts on the back side, but I basically want that to be as secure as possible, because if I do push 10 kilowatts out of it, then it's going to want to torque like a mother. So that's going to need to be secure. So fabricating a mount, it's going to go from here up to there, and then on the back side to get this roughly in line with where the sprocket is. You can barely see right there, but there's a sprocket and there's a front sprocket. Those are roughly in line. The motor basically has to be shoved all the way to the side of the frame, so it's sticking out on this side of the frame a lot more than it's sticking out on that side of the frame, which means I'm not sure how much it's going to add weight to one side and how that'll handle, affect the handling characteristics. But I am going to try and mount the battery and the controller dead center to help with that. So it should be a small amount of the weight that's only off center. So this battery and the other battery are roughly about the same size. The other battery is just 6 inches deeper. So as long as this battery fits in there with an additional 6 inches of width on it, then the other battery will be able to fit in here. And the reason why I want the other battery to be able to fit in here is because it's really more of for the Kudray motor is more for that battery than that current battery. So that one's only 50 amps, and that's only 3,600 watts. It's basically nothing. So even if I put the 200 amp bars on that battery right now, it would still be good for that motor, because that would be 1,400 or 14 kilowatts. Sorry, 14,000 watts. So I did at first order the 3,000 watts my 1020 motor, and then they never charged me for it or shipped it after, I don't know, a week. So I canceled that and then ordered the Kunray, and then after 2 weeks or whatever, they finally shipped me and charged me and shipped that one, and that got here. And I like it, but I still have that $400 battery that's only going to be able to output 3,600 watts. And I still really like my Cagliari, so I just ordered my 1020. I just, reordered it from the same place on Amazon. And now I don't care if it takes a while to get here, because I already have a project to build on. But I'm going to essentially install that battery that's over in the dirt bike right now inside of the Cagliari, and then my 1020 3,000 watt motor down there where the 49cc is, and then the motor controller. And I think that would still give that thing 5 horsepower, and that's more than that thing's ever had. So not sure if I'll keep it in there, but that's the plan with that. And then the second reason I got it is just because, I bought that battery specifically for a 3,000 watt motor, so might as well get a 3,000 watt motor, and they're only $200 for the entire kit, plus a T8F chain and sprocket and a throttle and pedal and a bunch of stuff. So got that ordered. We'll wait for that to come in, but we're going to get this up and running first. This is a priority. Unless the 1mm bars come in, the battery's the number one priority, because it'll be better to charge it after it's all fully built. And then I can just throw it on the 15 amp charger and then just let it take 3 hours. Then if I have to charge individual cells on a cell charger, because they'll only handle like 4 cells at a time, and I have 200 cells in there, so that would take a very, very long time if I have to charge the cells individually. So once the 1mm bus bars get here, it's all of my focus immediately goes into getting the battery built, getting it at least in a state to where the BMS is on it, and I guess pretty much built at that point. So that way I can charge it when the charger gets here, and that should probably be here before the bus bars get here. So but in the meantime, in lieu of waiting for that, I'm going to keep working on this and thinking about how I'm going to essentially marry those 2 points together, that point and that point. And then do it on the back side. This would be a lot more difficult to show you, but the back side is even harder because that bolt is way up there and the plate's down there and the motor's in the way, so I'm gonna have to like bend it around the motor and then turn it 90 degrees. I don't even know how I'm gonna do that. Anyway, let's get you zoomed out off that. So this is where the pocket bike is so far. Well, the pit bike is so far, and the battery build. So I'll keep you updated when I've got more to show you.